I worked with a lot of people that had a lot more humble mindset where you can look around to the guys to the left and right of you and see the things that they've done. I don't really want to put anything out about me because I haven't done nearly as much as what these other people have done.
Yeah.
So how could I possibly compare?
So I learned that you have to really slow down a little bit, take a step back, explain why we do things, what it's going to do for them, what it's going to do for us, and why it's critical to support the business. What you did in the military, you're kind of doing for our clients, right? So you're reviewing and you're out there and you're scanning, and then if we don't get that right, it could blow up.
If you think they're implied, you're going to miss.
To me, it just doesn't seem important. I'd rather show you who I am and the fun I'm having versus what I have.
But when you're helping without someone troubleshooting or looking into it first, it is actually hurting the business. It's hurting the level one's development. It's hurting their growth. It's hurting their trajectory and how to figure this stuff out for themselves.
Take a step back and revisit exactly each piece of the business.
Security has gotten so good that systems aren't the things that are breached anymore. People are breached.
I will say this, when you as a company hire the right partner in the right country, it can work great for you.
There's one thing that all champions have in common. They get shit done. So welcome to the Get Shit Done experience. All right, well, we are back at it again. This is the Get Shit Done experience, also known as the GSDX podcast. I'm talking to you right now, and I'm thanking you. I'm very grateful for the likes, comments, rates, reviews. Please keep them coming. Hey, it'd be really cool if you enjoy this show, if you share it with a friend, a family member. It would help us greatly. And by the way, if you want to be a guest on the show, I'm like a DM away. All you got to do is send me a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram or anywhere, and I respond at really weird times of night. So be ready. If you send me a note, I will respond. And by the way, if you comment on our content, like within 10 minutes, I'm going to comment back. I really appreciate you, and I want you to know that when you show love, I'm going to show you love back. So if you want to be on the show, let me know. If you know somebody at your organization that should be on the show, I would love to talk to them. We're all about promoting great people who get shit done, and that's why we're here today with Mr. Nick Verzillo. He is the Director of Sales for GSD Technologies and TTSG. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you. Excited to be back.
Well, I mean, we just.
I think I'm starting to get a routine here.
Yeah.
Every 3 weeks I'm on this.
We got like a thing going here. This is nice.
This is great.
You just keep getting shit done. I need to keep putting people on the show to get shit done. This is really happening. It's very good. But we've got somebody today that we want to introduce to you because, I'm a little reluctant when we bring somebody into the organization to like just pop them on the podcast right off the bat because, you got to feel the vibe. They got to get in kind of into the fold. They got to like learn where the bathroom is and they got to kind of get a feel for things. And by the way, they also have to show some results. And I got to tell you, like, our guest that we have today, because Nick and I are going to kind of co-host this, we're introducing you to the one and only Jason Hoffman, who's the IT director for GSD Technologies. Jason, welcome to the show, and congratulations on your role. You've been here for a few months, right? Yep. 4 or 5 months, and making a tremendous impact already. I can see that Nick's hair is growing back rapidly because he feels like he's got a partner in crime that he can run full speed with. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you for having me. I finally found out where the bathroom was, where to get my coffee. Yeah. So now we're square.
We're glad you found out where the bathroom was. It was getting a little weird.
My office was getting a little messy.
Oh, yeah, it was a little messy. He kept leaving. He kept going down the street. We're like, where did he go? And then he'd come back like 15 minutes later. He's like, I just had to go to the bathroom. I'm like, dude, it's right over. You could just... So we got that out of the way. It only took 3 weeks.
That's it.
But it was a bit strange at first, so thanks for finding that. Jason, before we just kind of get into the technical expertise and the brilliance and the knowledge and all the things that you're working on for not only internally but for our customers, because you've been playing a huge role in kind of working and collaborating with Nick and our CEO, Tim, to kind of write out what the vision for the organization is and what the offering is going to be and how we're going to execute the beautiful words, the brand promise that Nick is presenting with his team to the marketplace, you're making come true. Before we do that, let's get a little bit into who's the man. So I always like to kind of dig into social media and see people's presence on social media, and especially when they're joining the company. I want to know, like, what's their story, right? And so I'm really curious, Jason, like why you are not telling the story of your military background, because it's pretty awesome. Tell us a little bit about, you were in the Army Reserves, right?
Yep, that's
and you're
correct.
working on some really interesting things. So tell us about that. There's always savings, but it's about way more than savings alone. Total Technology Solutions Group redefines managed print services. Excellence is the minimum standard. TTSG is a true managed print service provider, deeply understanding your technology and business goals. Your business is unique. Our solutions are tailored to your current and future business goals. Our customer-first approach empowers and delights. TTSG can ensure your technology environment will scale as your business does. So as you navigate business and constant change, partner with TTSG for premium advisement and seamless implementation of your technology goals. We set the bar high. Your people deserve it. Peace of mind, powerful innovation, TTSG.com.
Yeah. So the reason why you probably don't see that stuff out there very often is, being in the military, coming from like kind of I felt I worked with a lot of people that had a lot more humble mindset where you can look around to the guys and the left and right of you and see the things that they've done. And you kind of just compare yourself to that. And like, I don't really want to put anything out about me because I haven't done nearly as much as what these other people have done.
Yeah.
So how could I possibly compare? So it kind of stays in the background, don't shine that light on me, shine that light on that guy, that hero over there who's done so much more. So you kind of sit back in the background that way and you kind of just don't let it come out. I find that, to be the case with a lot of people that I served with.
I could see that be the case.
I feel like that's not only that, but I almost feel like it's intimidating to put that out there, right? Because although you're doing great things for the country and everything, I could see that there's ranks, there's just expectations of who you are as a human being. So being on social media, people could misunderstand what you're trying to post out there. So I could see that. I mean, I would be very careful for sure.
Yeah.
I'm careful now because I look at that philosophy with my own life. Why would I go and post personal, materialistic things when everybody's always has someone more than you, or to me it just doesn't seem important. Like, I'd rather show you who I am and the fun I'm having versus what I have.
Yeah. And kind of in the mindset that way is like, I think in my mind, kind of it's always back there's like, I wish I would have done more, or I wish I would have done this, or I wish I had the opportunity to do something in a bigger capacity there. And since those things didn't happen, it's kind of just like, all right, sidebarring that because I could have done, I wish I had done more.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to, I don't want to disagree with you, but I do know a branding guy who would tell you maybe we should tell a little bit more stories. So hence why you guys are on here.
Yeah.
And I would tell you that I agree with Nick. It could be a bit polarizing as well. Like there are some folks out there that, I don't understand it, but I do understand that there are people who have difference in opinion and so on that I could see from your position. You're like, hey, look, this is a part of my life I did, but I'm not sure I want to put this out there because I don't know what the reactions are going to be. But let me just tell you from my seat, thank you for your service. And thank you to all the people in the military that make this country feel safe and that support people around the world and do amazing things. And one of the things you were telling me about is that you were helping to train militaries from around the world to utilize some of the advanced technology that we have. So talk a little bit about what were you doing?
Yeah. So I started, I joined the military after my sophomore year of college because, I was doing my IT stuff in college and I was like, this is great, but I feel like I could do more. And, I was doing my workouts and stuff like that where you can really kind of get in your head and start thinking about things. And I was just kind of like, well, if I don't do it now, then I would hate to be 30 and look back and be like, I wish I would have. And I don't like thinking I wish I would have. So I just did it. I was like, I think I can run college and this at the same time. I think I can run a professional career in this at the same time. So I gave it a go and I was able to make it work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what type of work were you doing? I
joined as a combat engineer. Combat engineer's primary focus is to go and find IEDs out in Iraq or Afghanistan. That's how most of our casualties were coming in those wars to begin with. So you're clearing the routes for everyone to be able to get to where they need to go to do the operations or get the aid to the villages or the towns that needed them, making sure that our current personnel and the people I served with were safe, and that help and need went out to those other people as well, and that then get caught up and they get put in a terrible situation that they're already in.
Yeah, it's amazing because when we see commercials for Wounded Warriors and some of the other amazing things, typically, they start the commercial off and they're like, I was taken out by an IED, right? And so pretty cool that you were able to kind of be like an offensive lineman for some of these folks that are,
exactly
the quarterback and the wide receiver and the running back.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And that's I feel like that's overwhelming, right? Like you have to make sure that your team can be protected out there. I think that just seems like a lot, right? Because if you miss something, and not that you would intentionally do it, it goes off and you feel like that was like an IED goes off. You feel like that was your job, and so it's got to be a tough pill to swallow.
Man, when you put it like that.
Further in the war too, they got a lot more creative with how they were planting IEDs. So it wasn't a lot of time your vehicle the one that's going to be blown up. It was the people behind you. So you're supposed to find it, and it was your buddies who paid the price.
Oof.
That's a lot harder to live with than if you paid the price for a mistake you made yourself. Even if it wasn't necessarily a mistake.
So some of the training that you were doing, you had mentioned that you went to Germany and some. So talk a little bit about like, you've entered into a field as an IT director that is really, obviously it's technical, but there's a lot of organization and structure, and it's very technical in steps.
Yes.
So like, how did your experience in the military kind of help to form you in your professional career?
Yeah. So, started as just a private, went in, started learning everything from the ground up, did all that great stuff. And after I became a little bit more proficient, we started going to do more training missions and helping out either sister companies or other countries that we're partnered with. And it really helps. I mean, after you start training for a little bit, you kind of go, I thought that was an implied step. And they didn't know that, so they screwed something up. And, that wasn't their fault. No one told them that. That was me. So I don't like having faults or mistakes or continuously making those. So you have to kind of refine that process of how you're describing something so that the thing that's implied in your mind is translated over to them, especially with language barriers and things that are so, let's just say explosive, because that's what they were, it's explosions. And that's dangerous. One little mistake can be the loss of not just your life, but everyone that's standing around you. So you have to be very detail-oriented, meticulous about how these things go forward and get trained up. So it was something that was structured in my brain, not so much structured at first when it was coming out, but then I developed how to properly train or explain these things, complex, dangerous things, in a cohesive manner that, has translated over into the real world where I'm not playing with bombs or anything. Now I'm playing with servers, and I hope they don't blow up.
If they did, you probably wired them wrong.
Yeah, something. That was somebody else's fault. Yeah. That was me. But definitely that, it's high risk, but what you are dealing with in the real world here is these are these people's businesses. Yeah. They might not lose their life physically, but they might lose their financial.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a similar
risk is
concept,
relative, right?
So you're what you did in the military, you're kind of doing for our clients, right? So you're reviewing and you're out there and you're scanning, and then if we don't get that right, it could blow up.
Yeah,
that's the reality. Not
exactly. I don't
blow up in terms of like efficiency they can be held hostage.
Continuity. Well, of course, but also like your business stops, right?
Yeah,
you lose money by the second. So it's livelihoods.
Yeah, and
I love that you say implied, because right, like there are some things in life and business we just go like we just are moving, and we just go, well, clearly everyone knows that, right? It's just it's the idea of communication, how important communication is. Like for a CEO, communicating clearly the vision of the organization, the brand promise, like what is the mission at hand for the organization, and then as the director of sales, right? Clearly defining what the KPIs are and how we actually execute and how we speak to customers. Those things, like if you think they're implied, you're gonna miss.
And what's wild that I don't know that people in the industry understand is implied in sales is more of a challenge to overcome than anything else. For example, when you're talking to a CEO or COO and you don't understand how to articulate the right technology, the right language, and how the sport's going to work, that can totally just deal goes sideways instantly as soon as you sign them on, right? So people could say you're overselling. Well, maybe you're not explaining properly of how this should be working, right?
And you're like managing expectations.
Exactly. So yeah.
You ran into this recently. One of the potential new clients here, called you the other day and was just kind of like, hey, do you guys do this like RMM service? And you were like, I thought that was implied because who isn't doing that?
What's interesting, so I got a call last night. Last night. And I was at my daughter's gymnastics, and I love her to death, but I'm bored out of my mind.
No, you're not out there doing the floor routine with her?
No.
Okay.
I kept my shirt on.
Fair enough.
So we talked, we talk about it a lot, but he was asking me questions about things that are included that I started to question, wait, did I explain this properly?
Yeah.
Like, was I? But it boils down to what Jason was saying is you have to sometimes, take a step back and revisit exactly each piece of the business, explain why it's important and what is included. When we talk about technology, it's huge, right? There's so much to it. But then you talk about security, it's the same. Like each small sector in technology has its own broad range.
Yeah.
So I learned that you have to really slow down a little bit, take a step back, explain why we do things, what it's going to do for them, what it's going to do for us, and why it's critical to support the business, right? So that's I've learned that, throughout my career. But it's interesting is what I enjoy the most about talking to these COOs and CEOs and owners and everything is like they're expressing their want for this business to be in a different place. That could be growth, that could be budget, that could be their employee experience. And so now I'm able to say, okay, well, if you want that, we have to do these next steps for your IT environment. And that's where Jason comes in and says, Nick, I see this. I'm a little concerned. And then we can start to build, because nobody wants to get sprung during a conversation of, oh, by the way, we need to spend $60,000 to migrate your server environment, right? So one thing that I will say about something that's been fun with Jason is we will look at every deal before it even gets to a salesperson. So we take all the details, right? And we'll really break it down and say, okay, well, here's what they're doing. And then Jason will ask, well, why are they doing that? So it almost doubled down on my sales ability. Am I out there? Like, I'll be like, okay, yeah, did I ask? Yeah, okay, here. And that's how we go back and forth. And that's how we create kind of a united front. Because to be honest with you, I mean, I personally, I love the business. I love technology, but I more than that, I like just making sure people are safe.
Yeah, solving problems.
Being safe. We've had clients who have had security challenges, and it's the worst feeling in the world because
that's that bomb in a network that
exactly.
you don't know that's there.
And you're like, it's preventable. That's the frustrating part, and it's not because you can prevent it from an IT side, because you can never 100% guarantee that, but it's preventable from a training perspective, from a communication perspective, from some things that you can implement to help that team. So we go in there and we've been really just kind of in the back end. We work together all day just saying, hey, what are your thoughts? Here's what I think we should do. And then of course, Jason has a technical background and I'm, more of the customer facing part. But in the end, I mean, that's what's critical for this business to continue to grow.
Yeah. And, I think you said a few very interesting and important things that I don't see happening at other places is that we do communicate prior to any of that stuff happening, because how many times, I don't know how many times I've been in front of a client that like we would be going in to take over that. And the biggest complaint would have been the salesman said, well, of course we could do this prior, and they never made it happen. Yeah. They always said yes. And, it's been 5 years and that thing hasn't happened. Well, me and Nick talk prior to these things so that when he's saying yes, that we can do something, it's because it's already been vetted and I know that we can do it. So that is I hope it helps build his confidence when someone brings a problem over. It's like, yeah, we can do it. And this is how we can do it. We're not just going to say yes and then figure it out after the yes. We're going to come to the table first with what those steps look like and a plan and a roadmap of how to get there and be transparent with what that costs and what that looks like. And, maybe it's not even needed. Maybe that's something that they thought they needed, but they could have accomplished it a different way. And then we make that happen.
So you're never taking for granted that's anything that's implied, because it's not. You're very detailed, very structured. Was that innate, or was some of that kind of like how you approach school as a child, how you approached a board game? Like, you very analytical and step by step, or was some of that really trained into you when you're dealing with high risk, life on the line? And then because it was trained into you, then it became like habitual?
Yeah, I think it was more innate. I have to make things make sense. If they don't make sense to me, or if I just see someone throw something out into the wind where it's like, well, X equals Y. And it's like, okay, but how do you know what X or Y even is? And how do we even come to this thing?
Oh,
You're
Lord.
just telling me that.
Oh yeah.
Nick, are you okay?
Yes. We've had some conversations.
Yeah, so it's a lot about that. And like, if it doesn't make sense to me, then how could I possibly explain it to somebody else that, you know, hey, this is the best thing for your business? Why? Well, if you ask me that question and I don't know the answer, then we got to really reconsider what we're offering, because I have to know why before we put that in front of a person. It has to make sense financially, for their business, for us, for time, everything. If it doesn't make sense, then it's never going to be offered.
Yeah.
It doesn't benefit anyone, especially if we, you know, I've seen it in the past, not here, other places where people have been sold a bill of goods. There was no why behind it. It never made sense. It happened, but it killed the engineers in the back end. And you can't do that to engineers over and over again. I know that because I was an engineer, and it's happened to me.
Okay, hold on a second, because you're talking to layman's term guy here. You got to explain that to me. What do you mean? What do you mean when you say it threw off the engineers? Explain that.
Oh, yes. So it would be kind of sales would go out and sell a big deal or something. No real talk with engineering or a technical side.
Just kind of like a cookie cutter, like, of course we can do your...
Right.
Yeah. And with the nature of the business, since everyone's business and network and, you know, whatever industry
It's like a
they're
snowflake.
they're all different. They all operate in a different way. They something that meets this company's needs, even if they're in the same industry, doesn't meet another company's needs that's in the same industry, because it's just, they've done stuff slightly different. Their process procedure, how they interact with the technology is different. All right, well, then you just take that, like we can go back to the implied thing. Well, I just thought that this would be the same as the other. And now the engineer has to make something work that was never put in place, but sold. And, you know, they might be able to make that work, but at insane time. Like where that would normally take 3 hours for somewhere else might take 50 hours in this case. And now that doesn't actually make sense for us as a company, because
because you can't pass the 50 hours on to the customer, because their expectation was for this price. This is what I'm getting.
Oh.
So now as an MSP, you just took your profit and just
tanked it.
That's the number one. How do you say this politely? That's the number one internal cost that we address, right?
Efficiencies.
Correct. And not only is it that part of it, but it's post-sale part. So, I had to go and run at a client and help them out with this. Okay, well, why did you go? Well, because I saw this, I needed to go do it. Well, did you talk to them about what that's going to cost? Right? Now, and I say that because this could be, instead of a fix, let's look at, okay, maybe we need to perform some sort of project for them, right? So there's a lot of different ways to look at that, but I guess the good and bad of this. The good news is our team does it because they want to help, and they're very concerned about the actual client themselves. The bad part of it is, as we talk all the time about scaling and growth and accounts and this and that, and where the engineers are, bandwidth, efficiencies, you know, reporting,
utilization, KPIs,
all that
for hiring
stuff.
triggers.
That's where it skews the number. So I think overall, I always look at like the team that we have. How do we produce, of course, the most out of each individual, right? But more than that, we've started to build what Jason did, which is really cool, is kind of, not that it's military, it's British business in general, but he created a growth plan for the engineers, right? So
and service desk, yeah.
Exactly. So here's how we're going to bring you in, and you're going to have a career path. I mean, for us, one thing that we talk about a lot is you hear turnover in the industry.
So much.
So, right. So not only account managers, but engineers. And there's always, for some reason, there's always like one engineer that's like the go-to person, right? And although that's not terrible, because, that's impressive to have that person on your staff, what if they're busy? What if they're on vacation? What if they're sick? So Jason's addressed it. He's really taken that as part of an initiative, which I appreciate, because I feel comfortable. Like I always want to know that if Jason's out sick, there's documentation supporting what we need to get by.
That changes how you can approach a situation with a customer, right?
Yeah,
and it's confidence level.
Not only that, it's okay. So when we look at scaling as we're growing, we have so much in place now from a document management, from a software management, from engineering, knowledge transferring, that we feel good about it. Like, you know, it's hard to get there because everybody wants to feel like their value is beyond what they're being paid, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But when you break it down and explain that it's not about, you know, you having to take over the world, it's about you performing to beyond expectations for yourself, and then we can transfer that success throughout the team. And then that way you can grow within the company. You don't have to be working 60 hours a week. I mean, I could tell you one of our engineers, I mean, he's been here for 8 years, and the guy will do anything, anytime. As much as I love it, you don't really want that for him.
Yeah.
Right? So this is where...
It also puts the company, especially a company that wants to scale, it puts the company in a very difficult situation if you keep going to the same thoroughbred over and over and over again. I guess eventually you're going to run that thoroughbred into bad ankles and bad knees, and they're not going to be the same. So,
Yep.
So there's that wanting to go to the star player, but you got to spread it around. Otherwise, you really can't scale.
Yeah. And you know what? Those people, a lot of the times, it's not so much that they will get the burnout, right? Because everyone will come to them. And the reason why some of that burnout happens is because that person wants to help and they have the answer.
Yeah.
So, you know, but when you're helping without someone troubleshooting or looking into it first, then it is actually hurting the business. It's hurting the level one's development. It's hurting their growth. It's hurting their trajectory and how to figure this stuff out for themselves. It's also hurting that senior engineer, whoever it is that has the answer, because they're just giving out answers for free. What do you learn when you give out stuff for free? You don't learn a lot.
Yeah.
You learn that guy has the answer. You don't know what the problem was. You don't know how to solve it. And
So you take away the critical thinking because somebody could just go
completely
get the answer. You don't have to, that person never grows and has to think, which means that they're going to maybe stay at level one longer than they need to. Whereas if they had to 100%. Think a bit.
And that gets them frustrated. Why can't I move up? And then they stay in the same patterns and they stay in the same spot and realize that they, you know, maybe feel like they're not growing at all and they're not moving up. And then they leave to somewhere else that does. And turnover is expensive. And MSP has high turnover. It's just the industry. But I recently put something in place right here. This was 2 days ago. 2 days ago, because we've identified some of those issues. They happen at every MSP. We're not unique in this. This is a shared problem, probably more than just an MSP space. Where that senior engineer, people were still going to him, but then me and the director of service desk came up with a plan and a procedure so that guy doesn't get to see those messages right up at the front. The level ones can only go to their level twos right up front to get those answers, so they're working on those things together, and then there's a clear escalation path up. And that promotes that internal troubleshooting, critical thinking skills, figuring it out, and I had to make it so I prevented those people from seeing those messages because I know that guy wants to jump in and help. But then it also burns him out because he's not working on the stuff he's supposed to be doing, even though he's providing value and helping out everybody and coming to and solving an issue and going forward. But that stagnates everything else and it's not scalable.
So how is that an advantage to the customers? Because that sounds like an advantage to us in the ability to create scalability. But if I was a customer, I'd be like, no, give me Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
So, but what you're saying is different. You're saying, hey, look, it's actually going to become more of an advantage to a customer because why?
So more of an advantage for the customer because those level ones and everything will then have those critical thinking skills, have those troubleshooting skills. So when you're first calling, you get your answers solved a lot more the first time. First time resolutions is a KPI that we track, and that is very important to me because quick solving, you don't have to call back, you don't have to play phone tag, you don't have to have any of this.
Speed to solution.
And frustration. And let's say that there is an issue that might be a priority issue, kind of, and that level one now is waiting on an answer from somebody else, and they only are waiting because they think, oh, well, that person has the answer, so I'm just going to wait for them to answer it instead of me just solving it. And so that issue that might have really been impacting that end user, maybe they can't get into the email, maybe they can't get into something else, is now waiting instead for that 10 minutes. Now they're waiting for 2 hours because that level one is just waiting for that answer instead of just figuring it out.
So empowering your employees is actually empowering your customers.
100%. I mean, it'd be great if everybody can call for their most basic or normal issues that impact their business. Is that getting solved by a level one instead of having to go to a level three, faster time to resolution, more skilled people that you're talking to on a daily basis. And that knowledge is being disseminated throughout the entire, staff so that they're all learning that as well. It's being documented. And now your things are being solved by a level one, whereas another place they're being solved by a level three all the time. companies can't afford level 3s for that all the time, and they're not going to be doing that. So you get a lot quicker resolution and a lot better, first call knowledge, everything back up and running, because downtime equates to money. And you don't want to be paying your staff to just sit there waiting on an IT problem while you're paying them $50 an hour. Okay, well, I just lost $150 for nothing. There was no production there.
So we had Eric Weichert on, who's our director of help desk. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And great episode. But I was really trying to drill into him. Like, I hear all this stuff happening. I get the phishing scam emails. You get them to your personal, and hear all these horror stories of what's happening with Russia and the Ukraine and India and China and so on. They're like every country's like
it also comes from here.
Yeah, and from here, attacks, cybersecurity attacks, and all these different things. And he had made the claim that, like, while we were on the podcast, there was probably 5,000 attempts that hit, or whatever the number was, that hit our servers, like people just coming at it, and that there's preventative maintenance measures in there, and there's things that are set up to fend those off. So, how often you run into clients that weren't set up properly, didn't have the right measures in place, and the reason why you're speaking with them now is because they've gone through absolute hell, and we're left holding the bag.
Yeah, I've had to deal with the FBI for cases like that, where there was an environment that was, let's say, underprotected with deprecated technologies that were end of life and no longer supported, but client might not have known that from the previous MSP if they never communicated that over. We had no indication that was. And what happened was, the people that were running the business didn't know any better. Everything's working for them. They don't know.
Yeah.
Well, what was actually happening is their, Exchange server wasn't being patched, and there was vulnerabilities in it, and it was old and end of life, and there was an attack vector in there, and people got into that network through a vulnerability off of an end of life thing that was still put in production. Didn't impact the client because things were still working, so they didn't know. But I did get a call from the FBI because they saw it. And then that's when we had to be brought in to start patching some of those vulnerabilities and getting that system migrated off. But, going through that whole process, that's not fun for the owner. They don't want to be doing that. They don't want that kind of scrutinization and knowing that some type of actual bad actor is like in their email system. They can see everything. Well, if you can see everything, who communicates in there? Your accountants, your financial people, your bank accounts, your bills. They could hold your business captive. And that's a huge thing. They make a bunch of money one day, and the next day they're not making anything anymore.
Wait, so you get a call from the FBI?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be like, so I was not there.
Yeah, exactly.
It threw me
Which
for
one
a
of the
loop.
things that I did are you calling about?
Take me through. I don't know. I'm interested to know, like, how was that call?
Yeah, that wasn't from Janice, was it? I swear to God, I wasn't there. Yeah, they called and they said, "Hey, do you know company XYZ?" Yeah, we do. We're currently, evaluating their network because they have some challenges in there. Do you know this account or this thing that's in there right now doing this stuff? Do you know who do you know who these people are? Some of the people were the owners. That's fine. Yep, we do know them. The others, bad actors. Nobody knew who they were, and they were in there. And it's kind of just like, is it malicious? Is the company trying to inherently do something that might be against the law, where maybe they're funneling money somewhere? Like, they have to investigate it all to see if this is something that, they're trying to do something shady. They weren't. They're just good business people. They're just trying to go about their day like everybody else. And they just so happen to be vulnerable and they didn't know.
Service is a huge. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, no. To that point, we brought on a client recently who, before we took them over, and we found this out after the fact, they were hit with a email phishing attack, right? And their higher ranking individual, I don't want to say anything specific on it, but he opened an attachment, and initially nothing. So this sat for 6 months.
No kidding.
That's a more sophisticated one. That's targeted.
6 months, and until the right time, they caught an invoice that he had communicated within the organization, and they changed routing numbers, 65,000 like that, gone. So
I have a good story about this.
So hold on.
what's even-
What happens with that?
Which part? Okay,
What
so
happens with the 65,000? Like what it just
It's gone.
It's gone. It's an undisclosed account. It's offshore. It's gone.
Offshore. Yeah.
Offshore, yeah.
So I have an idea of what it costs to use our service. Obviously, it changes and modifies depending upon
Sure.
the size and scope of the company. We're not working with Fortune 500 companies for the most part. We're working with, those
SMB, small, medium.
seven to 10 figure companies in that range, right?
Sure.
Small to mid-size, mainly mid-size. I would hope to say
from like 20 to a little over 1,000.
Yeah, so I like
employees.
to think that's a great sweet spot for us, but $65,000 to a company like that's a pretty big deal.
well,
That's when you're taking
it's
out
not a
second
rounding error,
mortgages
yeah.
on your house to
Like-
fund it.
So believe it or not, it's a larger organization.
Good.
I'm just gonna leave it at that. I will say it wasn't just 65,000, right? So we had to work with them. They had to hire a forensics IT company to review because they had to submit information to the insurance. I mean, it becomes a big project. So now you take your people's time.
Yeah.
We had to jump in and help out because now we are the MSP. And it's unfortunate because when you have an attack that sits on it could sit on your server. They could do whichever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just watch you. That's the scary part. So
That is so scary because when
look
I
at
think about
patterns.
it, when I think about something like this, I think like attack comes, they come in, they try and do their thing, and if they can't break it, they go.
Yeah, it's usually fast. Usually right away, someone will get in. You get a call because if you're not notified by your tools, which thankfully we are because we have that set up so that we can catch it before the person notices. But what usually happens, that person gets in, they shut off incoming email going to the email account they got. So that person doesn't know for X amount of time that they're no longer receiving email. That's how they hide it. And then they have it so they just push out something that is coming from a legitimate person from that email account that people are used to getting bills from, and they push it out to all the contacts. And what it is it looks like a nice little remittance or bill or invoice or something that's being sent out. You click on it. It says, okay, well, you got to sign into Microsoft to look at it. And you go, okay, I got to do that all the time. And then you put your credentials in there and you don't get anywhere. He's like, is my password wrong? Like, I know this. Well, they already got your password. Wow. And that's how they just keep compiling passwords and passwords and passwords to break into additional, infrastructures and stuff like that. So how you fix it, you remove the rule, you log them out of all their sessions, you kick out the bad actors, you change passwords, reset up MFA, and then they're usually good to go. You'll find attacks that are happening afterwards, but they're usually blocked and they're okay. But there are other cases that are more sophisticated nowadays, like probably within the last 6 months to a year, where people will get in. This is crazy because this bypasses MFA. They will send that email. That person will put their credentials in, and where it normally would deny them, they actually get through because that attack that's happening, they're passing that on through Microsoft, and they're taking your MFA token, and then they have it. And now the next time that breach happens, there is no MFA alert because they don't need it. And now you just don't know.
Oh my God. So there's a lot of ways I'd love to define a criminal. Now I could define them as patient.
Oh,
that is unbelievable.
What's-
Talk about being so patient that you would wait 6 months for the perfect opportunity. I mean, that's like stalking for the perfect moment.
Well, think about it.
yeah.
So you have these team of, we'll call them hackers, right? They send out random. So you're put into an automated situation where you're just getting hit left and right. As soon as something pops, boom, they pull it up, they review it. They may get in, they may be patient with it. It's not like people always ask me like, well, are we targeted? Like, we're all targeted.
Everybody.
It's not like a specific, because your business does X number, we're going to target this company. So it's always happening. We protect all of our partners and ourselves as best as we can, and we manage it, and there's security training, right? So the reason why I bring that up is going back to this point. If this individual who had opened that attachment had not done it, right, this would have never happened. And
So that's part of the training you have to give to the folks that we partner with.
And here's what I want to say, and I want to be clear because I think this is not a fear tactic. the previous MSP that had them had security training set up, had email protection services, it's still like when you're targeted so often, they get very creative, as Jason just said. There's going to find ways to get through. So you always have to know, this doesn't look right. I should double check it. I will tell you, in the last 2 years, I've had multiple calls of they get in their email, okay? They give access to their email. It's compromised. They send emails out to their clients with new routing numbers, new account numbers. Hey, we've changed. Please send this here. And it's once by the time you find out, you're easily 80,000, who knows how much out. So
I have a great example of this.
That's the scary part.
Yeah, a good example of this, and it's something I like to tell clients all the time, is that security has gotten so good that systems aren't the things that are breached anymore. People are breached. People are breached because they can't get past the systems without having those credentials where they used to be able to, with modern day firewalls and things like this. People are breached now. That's why you see these insane, like, trying to grab credentials, because once I have those, you might think it's just your email, but if you're connected, if your entire server network is connected to Office 365 and you don't have proper like provisioning in place and access right permissions, well, that email password is good for all the servers too.
Jeez.
Because that's how it authenticates. That being said, there's a good story I have on this, is how people are breached, not the system. Is I had a situation with a client where MFA was set up, everything was squared, everything was good on the security side. They got an MFA prompt at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, which is when people like to do it, bad actors, because they know they're sleeping and they'll just hit okay on that thing, so they can go back to bed when you just spam them with it. Well, she hit okay on it. She was the financial person. They had someone send $1 million to the other bank account, and they never got it back. And that was very local to here.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and that is not because the system failed. It is because a person failed. They had to accept on an MFA when they weren't trying to log in.
So so if you if you're a business and you go, hey, I'm gonna check a box here. I know I need IT support, right? I'm gonna check a box though here. I'm gonna hire a one-person operation, right? I'm gonna hire a one person because that person doesn't have a whole lot of labor costs. They don't have a whole bunch of overhead. So they can probably undercut price.
Yeah, cheap price.
Right?
Yeah.
They're doing it cheap.
Sure.
They're a cheaper option. So I'm just going to cut that corner, check that box. I'm going to hire that one person, guy I golf with made a recommendation. Guy does it out of his basement. I'm going to hire him.
Buddy's friend.
You got 40 employees at your company. This person just sets up the basic framework, right? You feel like everything's going pretty damn good. Never once does that person come out and do training of your staff. There's no emails that are coming out. They're not talking to your team. They're not sending out helpful tips on a monthly basis to essentially say, hey, just want to remind you that you shouldn't do this.
Quarterly
Next thing you know,
reviews.
$250,000 is out of your account because you cut a corner on $2,000 of MRR that you were hoping to save, and you lost $250,000 because you cut the corner and you went with the small shop.
Yep.
How often does that happen?
A lot.
So I want to be careful, and it's not funny, but it's frustrating for me because I think that I take pride in what I do, okay? And I also understand as a business owner, I worked my life for this, right? This is my
It's their baby.
Not only that, this is what takes care of people. Like I always tell everybody, from a sales perspective, like my job is so important because I put food on everybody's table. So when you think that I sleep well at night when the numbers are not where they need to be, that's not the case. I promise you. I could tell you I was in Lake Geneva this week and I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about a potential client not because of the money, because I want to make sure that they're okay. Like when you start seeing that there's vulnerability, you're like, oh man, this is like, I'm glad it's working, but it's crazy. So to that point, to your previous question, John, we had some conversations with some potential partners and we proposed our solution with what was requested by the client, right? And our fee was the highest fee. And his comment to me was like, well, there's a company that's willing to do it for a number that's, let's just say 10% of what we were charging.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
shouldn't that be an indicator?
Not only that, okay, I did some due diligence, not going to go into details. you would not want to have that as your supporting partner. And the reason is more, it's not so much, you could be a small company, be a great company. That has nothing to do with this. You know, do you have an actual office facility? Do you have proper insurance? You know, we have proper liability insurance for anything that
How
ever
about
happens.
servers? Like,
Do you have a test environment? You know,
Yeah.
we have a enclosed cage. We have a test environment. We have a lot of things that we do in the back end to make sure that our clients, before we do anything, we test it, right? So to your point, John, yeah, that's not sustainable, number one. Number two, I would be very concerned that the knowledge gaps that you're going to have with your experience, because the best part about going with an MSP is that you have access to multiple skill sets, okay? Beyond the service support. I mean, I'm talking about just the knowledge of your business. That's the best part. So it's disappointing because it's not, like, take the money out of the picture. If we were to take dollars out of the picture, who would you select? And this is what I said. Well, you guys are great, but you know, I go, well, let's not do the but. Let's just, okay. I go, so now that you understand that this is my concern, you know, the reality is we're never gonna, it's just not gonna work out, right? And so that's the frustrating part of that. That's where I'm like, you know, you can't look at the dollars necessarily. It's not.
but Nick, how often do those people come back to you a year and a half later?
Every time.
So that's the frustrating part, is because you could have saved them a year and a half of frustration, of hassle, of what the heck decision. And remember, they make the decision, everything's good for 6 months, you're on board. About the 9-month mark, maybe a year in, they start to go, what the hell did I do? Why did I make this decision? And was it really worth it? And then there's that thing, and I've been on the buying side before, where I was like, then the ego kicks in. It's like, dude, I can't go crawling back to Nick and be like, you were right, right? But you kind of wish that people would just be like, oh, geez, Nick, man, you were right. I apologize. Like, I'll never do that again. Like, come on in. But that doesn't happen enough, but it does happen.
Yeah, we a client that we signed last year, they came back to us. They went with a competing MSP. They found that it was more expensive. The services were not there, and they came back to us, and we, you know, there was no hard feelings. It was, you know, listen, it's business. I mean,
you didn't rile them up a little bit, like, I told you. You didn't do that.
I mean, I might have thrown a jab or two, but but you know, in the end, I think that I try to be very understanding of their decisions, and I will always explain, you know, hey, that's totally fine. We work with them. We're very, you know, Jason and I mentality is that we don't cause conflict
in the present.
If you want to make a change, we're going to help you make a change, right? You know, but at the same time, we're going to warn you of what you need for your IT environment. I'm not going to talk about a different MSP. It's not professional, in my opinion. I'm just going to tell you, you have projects you need to be done. Make sure that you guys have that conversation, right? And if you have concerns, call me. I will be, you know, we still help them. They still call us. When we've offboarded, I mean, I think 4 clients in the last 4 years. So it's been a, you know, for us, it's been great.
Yeah.
It's been great. The offboarding process should really take 30 days, 45, maybe 60 if it's a larger environment. Let's say 90 because of vendors, right? It's been 6 months, and we're concerned. We're like, okay, so we still have your QuickBooks. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of challenges with that. And you know what I've learned that in the last few years of being here at GSD is when people leave, most of the time, it has nothing to do with money. Most of the time, it's all about, you know, expectations. So I say that because they may feel like we should have done something that is not within the contract or wasn't explained properly or was implied. Like, this is where it's so critical that we change that.
Communication's got to be on point.
That's it. And it's like so exciting now because we're talking to companies that really are excited about who GSD is, why we are, you know, it's, we listen, service is what we strive to do. Excellent.
Okay, so IT decision makers, this might sting. Frustrated with IT issues, security threats, and the stress of your technology infrastructure, your technology should blend seamlessly with your business objectives. Technology infrastructure management with limited resources can be exhausting and counterproductive. Do you have an MSP but still have problems and technical hiccups? GSD's advisement, proactive maintenance, cutting-edge cybersecurity, cloud solutions, data backup, and local 24/7 help desk can change the game. Your technology should outpace your business operations to allow for growth, and proactive strategies should prevent issues before they arise. Get back your time and your money with GSD. Drive business forward. Leave the technology to GSD. GSDnow.com. I got to get into that because everyone says it.
Yeah.
Look, I'll play devil's advocate if you don't mind. Everyone says it.
Sure.
There's every company out there is leading with service, and I take it for what it is. You're going to hear this as a brand promise across the board. You're going to look up every IT company, and somewhere on their website and somewhere on their brand messaging, it's going to say service, right? Their salespeople are trained to go out and talk about service. They might have a podcast, or they might have some sort of content creation, social media blitz where as sure as heck they're talking about service, baby. Okay, so let's just clear the air here. If everyone had amazing service, then why do so many people change their IT because of service? Okay, so I just want consumers out there to recognize that statistics don't lie. People do. Salespeople are going to come in there, and they've been informed and instructed, and it's not because they're malicious people. They're not bad people. And so I don't want to throw people under the bus, but they've been told lead with service. And yet the turnover in this industry is huge. And when you question in the initial meeting, why are you looking to make a change? Almost always they say the service was not very good. You just described that in 8 years, 9 years, whatever the number is, we've offboarded 5 companies. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be a pretty good indication that we're retaining our customers for a reason. And if service is so important, that would be a pretty good indication that our service is pretty damn good. Am I off? Am I wrong?
I would agree with that.
And let me elaborate. So there's service and there's support. And I'm going to say this because we provide you services under contract. Okay. By services, I mean your server. We manage your servers, your full infrastructure, all of the agents, the security components, not only reviewing, but also making sure that your data is backed up, right? And all those total solutions. So typically when you have issues, it's because that service is not done correctly or set up correctly, right? So for example, yes, there's human error, but if your network is not properly configured, or you don't have proper VLAN tunnels out to another location, right? Things like that, that is where you have challenges, okay? Then when you call for support, it's a lot different than when you call for my email's not working, or my phone doesn't work, or the printer doesn't work, right? So there's different parts of the business is why they leave. So when a potential partner says, "Hey, the service was not good," I have to ask, "Well, tell me more," because there's so many ways you could cut that up, right? And then the other side of it is, this is the economy that we have. Unfortunately, it's outsourced business. So I believe the reason why GSD has a better track record in that sense is because all of our team members are here. They're in-house. When you call, you're calling Hanover Park. When you have an issue, we drive to you. We don't have services outside of the range that we can get there within 2 hours. That's the difference.
So you're not calling somebody from another country that is trying to relate to you and says, "Hey, I noticed you're in Chicago. I'm a huge fan of the Chicago Cowboys." And is pretending that they're in, that they're in Indiana, and
right.
That they're somewhere. And I think Jason, you were telling me a story about one of our customers or somebody you were talking to, like literally had to pull their CFO, not like somebody who's, maybe a less of an impact on the organization. We're talking about CFO. Like, that's a pretty important role in a company. And there's one of them, and you got to pull this person like out of a meeting, out of a board meeting, in some sort of strategy session to translate.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about that.
That's exactly right. We went into this meeting and we kind of asked how they're going. Why are you looking? It kind of seems like you guys have a decent setup. Doesn't seem like there's maybe that many issues, but like, so what's going on? I mean, what causes you to look? Because I'd love to address those things right up front. I mean, you obviously have pain points with it. Well, what this is, whether, we can get into another issue here too as well, is that their MSP potentially bought by a PE company, which is happening a lot in this industry.
What are they doing? Roll-ups? They're buying 5, 6, making them one.
Yep.
Yeah, it's challenging to grow an MSP to a larger size without a heavy investment, just because of our cost of internal staff.
Well, there's a lot of IP, right? There's a lot of intellectual property. It's people.
It's people.
Exactly.
It's always people. And, instead of trying to fix how do you get the people to stay, they say, well, what if I just don't care about if the people stay? Okay, well, then you can outsource your service desk to India. You can outsource it to Pakistan, Dominican Republic, Pakistan. Those are like the 4 major players. Well, now I don't really care, and it's super cheap, right? I don't have to manage those people. I'm outsourcing my service to a service, kind of. And then they call, and in this case, they outsource it to India. The CFO happens to be Indian, and they can't understand when they're calling just to reset their password or anything. And something that should take 10 seconds, now call down Mr. CFO, his time is now being consumed because he's not doing the things that he needs to be doing to push that business forward and grow. He's sitting, translating to see about how you can get a password reset. And in any world, tell me where your time is best spent doing that. And the level of frustration that just goes on with that, it's like, that person doesn't want to bother the CFO just so they can be like, I don't know what he's saying. And there's no connection.
And look,
here's what he brought up too, not to interrupt you, John. Here's what he brought up too was the bigger problem with that is you don't get the same rep every time.
No.
So they have to ask you questions about the basic understanding of your environment. So you're
starting and restarting every time.
Yeah, so a potentially 15-minute resolution is like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's like every time when you call whatever, just say a big company, I call Verizon. And I get on the phone and I do their little automated thing and I give them all my information and then I get connected with an agent after, 10 minutes of stuff I don't want to be doing to begin with. And then they just go through and ask me all those same questions again. At that point,
Jason, I just had this situation.
I'll live with my problem at that point. I don't want to be on this.
Oh my god!
Did you hear me with T-Mobile? I don't know if I can say their name.
I had to close the door, guys. I got a call. My son got into a fender bender. And we took the car down to the shop. The shop says, hey, look, it's a used car, right? So based on the value of the car and how much it's going to cost the service, like,
don't make sense.
It's totaled. And it was totaled because 4 seatbelts didn't work anymore. It was a fender bender, but the seatbelts didn't work. So, okay, lesson learned. But the insurance company, who clearly outsourced, this person calls me up. And now I'm frustrated because you're telling me that I'm out on the down payment. We've only had the car for 5 months, so I'm out on I got to eat the down payment. Okay, and now I gotta go through the hassle of going to talk to a used car salesman to get another car.
Yep.
So now there's a night of my life. So I'm already amped up and I'm already frustrated. Plus, I kind of want to get my kid in a headlock. So I'm a little amped up on that one. And then I get a call from this person who's essentially going to break the news to me. In a way that I can't even understand what they're trying to articulate to me because I don't understand their industry. And then on top of that, I'm really struggling with the
language barrier.
The language barrier, and I'm not trying to be mean or rude in that regard. Obviously, I love everyone. I appreciate, and I know everyone out there is doing the best that they can, and they're working as hard as they can. But let's be honest, like there is a language barrier, and I can see where that would be difficult for somebody else who's got to communicate with this knucklehead, right?
They want to help.
Look, there's a knucklehead here talking to a knucklehead there, and we don't speak the same language, and we have thick accents, and so on and so forth. And so now the frustration is kicking to the point where I'm conferencing my wife. I got to hand this off to her because I'm literally going to come through the phone and strangle you. And the person's like, I don't understand what you're saying, sir. I'm like, I know you don't, and I don't understand what you're saying either. But I felt so bad for the person on the other end of the line as well because she was just doing her job.
Yeah.
But I can't operate. I can't understand what's happening. This took an hour and a half of my life. Was taken for this situation.
Yeah.
That could have been 10 minutes. But it just was such a breakdown.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, but I just do want to add to the point that collectively here in this room, like we're not saying people are bad or we shouldn't work with another country or whatever. What we are saying is there are moments that are critical in a business where you want comfort and you're already frustrated. And it would just be really, really nice to talk to somebody that is like your neighbor next door, that lends you that comfort, gives you the technical advice, and solves your problem and leaves you better than you arrived. I didn't leave better than I arrived when I got that phone call. But I'm talking about it on the podcast now. I'm still pissed.
Yeah, but the problem with that, this whole situation is outsource can be great.
Oh, yeah.
If it's outsourced properly. So what I'm saying is if you outsource to India has a great IT pool.
Brilliant.
Correct. So, but you have to pay the right amount to get the right amount of people dedicated to your account. So this is where it becomes a problem is when you have, when you go into a company that's just outsourcing help desk and they only have a select amount of hours per month or maybe one agent or two agents, that's where it fails.
So for the company that they're outsourcing to, you're not a big enough fish for them to provide their highly capable, highly trained, assimilated, maybe have gone through language training and so on. You're getting the new person that hasn't gone through that yet, will eventually be there 3 years down the road. They'll get to that point because they're dealing business with people overseas and internationally, so they're going to have to assimilate and adjust. But because you're not a big enough customer to the outsource company, the customer of the company, the MSP, gets the shorthand on that.
Well, so here I've done international business for years. And I will tell you that I outsourced development, believe it or not, to Colombia. The best.
That's what I've heard. Hands
down, the best skilled developers I've ever worked with in my life. And when I say skilled, I mean skilled for the different ranges of because development is very,
there's
very,
a lot.
But my point is, I think there's a misconception that, it's all, driven out of, one country or a couple of countries. It's really not.
No.
Believe it or not, Romania has a great IT force. Poland has a great development force. There's a lot of Europe, but also South America is actually...
That's what I've heard.
It's an incredible... We call it nearshore because the time zones, right? It's an incredible pool of IT individuals that, they have a great system down there of education. And I will say this... Going back to my point, when you as a company hire the right partner in the right country, it can work great for you. They were on when we were on. We set it up in different time zones, but we spent the time building that so our clients never felt pain, right? Which is why, going to your point, John, is like, I left feeling worse than I came in the call. That's because the individual who negotiated that support didn't really... Either A, they outgrew the current support, or B, it's the wrong partner that they have in that certain location. So it could work great, and it could be great financially, but at the same time, it puts a bad reputation in the industry. And so do our MSPs. We have a terrible reputation in the industry. Why? Because of overpromising, under-delivering, because of saying yes when you should say no, because of
one-man shops that can't do the thing they promised,
or maybe
your stuff.
Or maybe saying this will work for now, but you have 90 days to make sure we address this technology problem you have. That's where the bad reputation.
There's another thing to that point is that there's a sweet spot for businesses, but there's also a brand promise or a brand mission. And some companies get to a point where they start to create momentum and they lose their vision, they lose their mission, and they start focusing on profit as the leading indicator. Now, we all know that profit is the most important indicator in business. We get that. But some companies lose who they are and how they started in order to maximize that profit. So some of the companies you're talking about, they make the change because like their initial vision was, hey, we're going to provide unbelievable service. We're in-house. We're local. You're going to talk to the person next door. And then all of a sudden they go, ooh, we're really rolling here. How can we get that next edge of dollars to the bottom line? Well, let's outsource this. And then they make the mistake of not fully vetting how the impact that's going to have on their customers, whether that's going to cause frustration and so on. They're making the decision because it's going to be cheaper, but it creates a different brand experience for their customers, and then they start to lose their identity. One thing that I think is really cool between you two and Tim is you're really staying the course with, hey, look, our brand vision, our brand mission, our brand promise is that we're going to have 24/7 help desk that is here local, that is going to make you feel like you're calling your neighbor next door and is going to have a rapid response time.
Because you are.
Because you are.
Yeah, there's a real point of pride to this. Me and Nick, before this podcast, we went out to the gas station just to grab a drink or something.
You had to find the bathroom again? See how I brought that back around? That was an hour ago. I remembered.
Well, people frown when I do it in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's weird. It is weird.
Well, so we were just going over there. The gas station's literally 1 minute away. We can see it basically from where we're at. Well, we pulled up to the stoplight, and what comes by us? One of our clients' semi-trucks. Mm-hmm. There's a point of pride to that because, Nick was looking down the roads to make sure we're not getting hit, pulled out. I pointed out, hey, there they are.
Yeah.
There's a point of pride to seeing that you help someone and they're right by you. You can see their stuff flowing. You can see them growing and you get to grow with them and they're literally right there. You have to kind of care if you're going to see that person in the grocery store. I can't be, the biggest dick bag to somebody and then go see them.
Yeah.
How does that work out? No, I get to smile and I get to shake hand. I get to see that. I go, look at that. They're still out there. That looks great. They're killing it. And I can kind of see that on the periphery of just them being out in the world, even though I only communicate with them, in the office or when I go to their site or something, but I get to see it.
So this is new. This is the new squad, guys. Okay, so this organization has been operating successfully and is scaling and growing. But Nick is a year and a half, 2 years in, 2 years
Almost
in.
2 years, yeah.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Jason is under 6 months.
Yep, 4.
And have they're ham and egging it right now. Golf term, right? 2-man scramble. And peanut butter and jelly. And they're carrying out and executing the vision of Tim Ward. And Tim's vision with TTSG initially was service. Same with Bob Withers, who's our COO. Their main thing, their point of pride, the way that they built TTSG was we're going to beat everyone's service, which means we're going to show up. We're going to show up. We're going to put our face right in front of you. And when you got a problem, we're going to show up and solve that problem. We're not going to put it off. So it would make sense when Tim talked to Dick Portillo, and Dick Portillo said, hey, Tim, you need to get into this IT game because all you do is get shit done, okay, with TTSG. So, this is the way the industry's going because no IT director, this, wants to deal with copy machines and printers, right? So you need to get into the IT thing because it gives you an open. Tim goes, okay, I'm going to leave there. I'm going to start GSD Technologies. So starts it, gets it rolling. Now he's building out his A team. You guys are on the A team, and Tim is essentially saying, hey, look, here's the brand promise. Here's the vision. This is how we're going to operate in the marketplace. I have built a name in the marketplace. I have built multiple brands on networking, using my book of business, using my relationships, using my reputation,
personal reputation.
And it matters to me that when somebody hires us for any of our brands, right, that they are going to get the ultimate service because his name is on the line, right? But at the same time, he's starting to step back because all he does is build brands. That's what he just kind of goes to the next thing. So he's handing the keys over to you guys. Now, I'm not saying that fully, but I'm saying like he's going, hey, look, now I got an A team. I'm going to let these boys run. These are two thoroughbreds. I'm going to let them go, right?
Yeah.
And but he's still dangling the carrot. He's letting you know where the finish line is. It's up to you guys to do it. So in doing that, he's giving you some grace, some flexibility to adjust the vision, to implement different systems, controls, and procedures. Talk about that. What's the joy in that? What's the purpose in that? How have you taken the outcome he's laid out for you? He's told you very clearly what he wants the outcome to be. He does that for all of us, but he doesn't really interfere with how you get there. He might add some ideas, right? But he doesn't really get in your way, right? He might adjust you, but doesn't get in your way. So let's talk about collectively, the two of you, when you start to think, what's the big vision? How are we going to do this? What have you changed? What have you modified? And what's to come?
Well, yeah, that's fantastic. And something that I can say about Tim and Bob, I don't know how many people know Bob, but they are fantastic because they will not let bad service fly. That is, I couldn't even imagine, Tim getting a call that's saying like bad service and that has to come to me. Well, for one, I'd feel incredibly bad because we try to provide that for everybody and we do. And he cares incredibly about it, like he should. Like I said, personal reputation. This is something that reflects poorly on him, and he has a good reputation out there. I wouldn't want to sully that. I want people to be taken care of too. But as far as like how he can kind of like, he's a vision guy. Tim's a vision guy. Tim says, oh, what would this look like in 5 years? What would this look like in 3 years? I want to be doing this in 3 years. Well, how do we get there? Okay, well, these are what the numbers look like. This is what pipeline stuff looks like. Inherently, I know, being in the MSP business for my entire career, is that you get to a certain point of growth, and a lot of people stagnate in the MSP business around a certain number. It happens everywhere. And it's because they didn't take the time or the know-how or, whatever the case might be, or the right people in place to be putting proper process and procedure in so things can scale with you. Like we were kind of getting back to, people outsource the service desk because like, well, how can I make this cheaper? And they say, well, we get this many service calls. We have to pay people in America this much to handle this sort of volume. That's sustainable for what we have to pay them, so we go pay somewhere else. When the right question to ask is, how do we make it so clients don't have problems anymore? How do we reduce the amount of volume that's coming on so that we can serve more clients with our good people that we have the time, the energy to build properly, that we have trust, that they know they're going to be taken care of, and that we believe in what they're doing, so they can service more people because our clients aren't calling in anymore. We don't have to worry about outsourcing because we can't fix the process and the procedure and the efficiencies. We're trying to set up the systems correctly so that people don't have to call in. Lower your volume. You can keep this all here. You can keep the things you believe in and continue to grow in a good way without having to cut corners and do stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, working with Tim has been enjoyable, and I'll say the reason is because I agree with Jason, and John, this, he's a visionary. I mean, he has ideas for days, right? I actually believe that
might be for months.
I believe that he doesn't sleep. That's a personal
I would
thought.
agree.
But what's great is that, so he sat down with us prior to Jason coming and was like, what do we need to get to where we want to go? I want to know everything. And he was humble enough to sit there, and I just gave him the most direct response of what challenges we have, where we need to go, how we're going to get there, what I need from him. And he took everything in, sat there, thought about it, came back to us in a few weeks and laid it out on the line. Here's exactly what we need to do. Here's where I agree. Here's where I disagree. If I disagree, tell me why I should do this. He's open-minded if it's going to improve the business.
Has to make sense.
Correct. So,
I mean, that's fair.
It's all I can ask for.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, it's all I can ask for. And so we really made heavy investments into our people. That was the first starting point. We knew we wanted to grow. We knew when to scale. We know profit's important, but we also know that without the people, the profit's not going to come. I mean, it's just the reality of how
And
it is.
without people, you're not going to have great customers for an extended period of
Correct.
time. Therefore, there's nothing.
Correct.
I
So
want to talk to a new person every single day when they call.
yeah. And so we really transformed the people, right? And we started doing that little by little, and then we brought in, we met Jason, and then I went to Tim and I said, look, if you want me to be a transparent here, he's got to be the IT director. He needs to be. And then Tim's like, okay, Tim, what people don't know if you haven't met Tim is he'll agree with you, and then he'll think about it, and he'll come back to questions, right? Which is fair. Mm-hmm. And most of his questions were based around the current team, which was exciting because that means that Tim already saw the person in the seat. It was, how do we make sure that the team can work within this new environment, and let's make sure that it's going to make sense for everybody and valuable for everybody, most importantly. So we did a lot of that. We did a lot of really looking at everything from, the people, the technologies, the clients themselves. Are they set up properly? Do we need to make changes? So we did all of that, and then that's how we've really built, in my opinion, is an exciting, growing company versus, a company that, because most MSPs, back to Jason's point, do about $1 million and they stop growing.
Mm-hmm. Stagnate.
It's like they're all about $1 million, right? And then the larger ones, what happens is you get so large that your previous clientele doesn't make sense anymore, right? And so
It's a runaway too.
yeah, and I will say we have goals from Tim for 3 to 5 years. We've worked hard on it. We have goals weekly. We have goals monthly. But most importantly, we don't look back and say, oh, we need to change this because this didn't work out. Rather, and that could be a client, that could be a tool, whatever. We push towards that end goal no matter what, and that's what's helped us grow, and that's what's helped change. I went to Tim and I said, Tim, if we want to get to this point or number, we have to change how we attack the market. And he looked at me and he's like, yeah, sure, go do it. I'm like, no. Like, I want you to understand, like, it's going to be painful. Like, I was almost like in a movie. I'm like, it's going to hurt a little bit.
Just a little bit. You hurt him. You did. You a little bit. You did. That was my De Niro, by the way.
It's beautiful.
You just need a beauty.
A little bit. You hurt him a little bit. You did.
Yeah,
I ain't doing that no more. That's my Joe Pesci.
I can't say it without the language. So, but he was open minded to it, and that's been the key thing is he understood it. And the reality is we have 3 companies under one roof. So not only are we trying to take GSD to the next level and grow it, we have to incorporate 3 different companies into one building of personalities, of brands. It's been a lot, but it's been fun. And most importantly, on the GSD side, I think we to your point, John, there's an excitement. There's a feeling of everybody has each other's backs. Like there's for me, I don't care if you make a mistake necessarily. I care if you make a mistake twice, and I care if you don't care that you made a mistake.
Yeah.
So I think we have a good group of people. I think we have a CEO that's starting to. He's at a point, and to your point, John, he's built the company with his contacts. He's starting to say, go do it. Here's everything you need, go do it. And what's great is we're allowing him to take more time to work on the business. That's kind of part of our goal. But most importantly, we're creating career paths for people. And also I feel like our clients I feel comfortable. Like I know that we're on this recording, so I'm not gonna, wow, of course he's gonna say it, but I genuinely feel comfortable for where we are from, our clients' positioning in the business in terms of their IT environments. And, we are the backbone, right? So I understand it's a big undertaking. I get it. It's nerve-wracking, and we're very patient. We want to make sure that everything's laid out. But overall, it's been very fun to see the transition, especially over the last few months.
So we know who we are. We know what we do. And maybe it's too late in the show for us to talk about this, but I'm going to anyways. Why do we do it?
Oh, I was actually explaining this to someone the other day. And this is just my personal view and how I feel of the MSP industry that I've been in, over a decade. I think I'm a person who likes helping. I just like helping. If I can help someone, no matter what it is, if I can help you take out the garbage, if I can help you do whatever.
Go to the gas station.
Sure. He helped me do that. He should feel good. And if I can help, I feel good helping. We're in a business that gets to help people and their businesses succeed because it's a skill set that they don't have. They might have built this business from day one. They started just them, and they've grown it because they do whatever they do really well, and they exceed at it. And I have to imagine they like at it because they're continuing to do it and they're exceeding. Well, they were the IT man when they first started, and then they eventually go to a place where that's no longer feasible because they're not just working on the internet. They actually have real needs, and they don't know anything about it. But we do. And, maybe they don't have the budget to go hire someone internally. For sure, they don't have the skill set to be able to interview for someone who can go run their business or run their IT because they don't know it. But we get to go and do that, and we can do it for a good price and give them a bigger team for less money that fits into their budget with a bigger skill set, and they don't have to know it anymore. They get to focus on the reason they started the business in the first place, doing something they love and exceeding at that, and we get to help them and grow with them. I love being able to help. We're not taking advantage of anybody. This literally financially makes sense. Back to my brain, and things have to make sense. I have always had a stigma against sales and things like that, where it's in my head, probably from my father, about like, oh, people are just trying to rip you off. We don't have to do that ever. We never have to pretend like yeah, this is going to make you guys succeed. You're going to get so much more profit if we do this, blah, blah, blah. No, we get to just propose things that we believe in and we can do. And we get to help.
And we've got enough traffic going where if we don't believe that or you don't believe in us to do that,
That's okay.
Guess what? We'll be next door.
Yeah.
We're good to go. We're fine. We'd love to work with you. We would absolutely love to work with you, but only if we truly believe that we can change your life by improving your business. If we don't believe that, we'll say no to you faster and you'll say no to us. Yeah. And that's kind of the key part to this too, is like, while this episode is a bit of us talking about Jason and getting you to know in the marketplace who Jason is and talking about kind of the belief system and how we've gotten to this point, I think it's important that people understand and know that, we're a great option. We're not the only option, but we are an absolutely fantastic option. But we're certainly not going to beg for anyone's business, especially if we don't believe that we can absolutely change your life, make your life better, have a huge impact. So that's a huge thing. The website that you should go take a look at, which by the way is a new website, thank you to 2020 Design and Nick Verzillo partnering together to kind of spearhead that bad boy and put it together, is www.gsdnow.com. You probably heard earlier in the middle of the podcast a little ad read that yours truly did. And we'd really thank you if you would go to the top right corner and hit that free demo and have a consultation with Nick and his team, who will come out and do some amazing work. So I'm going to throw the ball to you, Nick. We heard the why from Jason. Why should somebody work with GSD?
Because we look at, are we the right partner? We look at your business before we look at the financial side of it, right? So at GSD, our big internal discussions are based around their business and how they use IT and what they need to grow the company versus why we should charge them what we should charge them, right? So, and when you're choosing an MSP, I would recommend to never look at price point. Should not be the first. It should be, who you're working with and what they're going to do for you. That's the biggest piece that I would say. And so that's what we do first. Initially, pricing for us comes up in discussion once we do a full assessment, of course. But I want to just stress that we look at your business, how you can go and run your day-to-day, how you need to do to perform your job the best and also grow your company, right? And let us handle the business, the IT side, and make sure that you don't have to stress out about it. So that's the big part.
There were years in my life where I made decisions based on price, and whether I was in a fantastic financial situation or a bad financial situation, I was making a lot of decisions based on price. And I got to tell you that it came back to bite me more times than not. At some point in my life, and whether it was on an up or a down, because I've had some ups and downs, man, I've been rich and I've been poor and I've been anything in between. And by the way, I would tell you that rich with purpose is probably the best one. So I'm aiming for that one because I've been rich with no purpose and poor with a ton of purpose. And neither one of them are that great. So I'm looking for rich with purpose. But I will tell you that one of the things that is extremely important to me in the way that I make decisions now is, can I vibe? Can I vibe with the people that I'm working with? Do I like them? Like, would I have them in my kitchen? Like, could I work with them to the point where I would have them in my kitchen for my wife to make one of her best meals and we could break bread together? Like, would I want to hang out with them at a Cubs game? You know what I mean? Like, would I want to play 18 holes of golf with them? And let's be honest, like, I'll play golf with anybody, but I'll be honest with you, like after 3 holes, I'll probably be annoyed by a lot of people and wish that you weren't there. Like, would I want to introduce you to my mom and dad?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I started to really realize that, like, the value of money becomes less and less important when you start to look at the value of character, when you start to look at the value of actual value. When you start to look at the benefit that a human being is going to provide. Are they going to be there for you when you call at 3 a.m.? Because Nick will be awake at 3 a.m. He just talked about it. On vacation in Geneva, thinking about a client. And I know that's a true story because he told me the next day. I said, dude, you got some bags under your eyes. He said, yeah, it's because I was up till 3 a.m. I couldn't stop thinking. So that's not a BS podcast clip. That's a real deal conversation. So I will tell you right now that if you're making your decisions in the marketplace based on price, I would really reevaluate that, especially when it comes down to your most important critical elements of decision making. And I think we've given you a case here as to why IT is one of your most critical decisions, because your livelihood, your baby, your brand, your pride of brand, your people, and your financial situation rest on the hands of how strong your IT environment is. And that IT environment is going to be strengthened by people that are brilliant, that do the right work, not for price, but because they know that it's the right solution for your organization, because they're looking out for your best interest. So the next time that you are approached by somebody that comes in with a price that you look at and you go, ooh, that looks really good, and another organization comes in with a price where you go, how in the world did they get there? I would maybe lean into the how in the world did they get there, because those are the people likely that are telling you the truth. And if they are great people like Jason and Nick, and I've sat in with Nick where he said, you know what? I got to tell you, I think we should eat some margin here because we could really change these people's lives. And I'm not talking about cut the price in half, but I'm saying come down a little bit. There's been situations where he's done that.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and that means that you're dealing with somebody who understands they want to solve problems, but also is understanding that you have a budget, and is also understanding that the short-term gain is not why we're in it. We want long-term partnerships that we can watch their business grow as they watch our business grow. And together we can get shit done. Folks, I want to thank you for being on this podcast. Jason, as always, just dynamo. Nick,
welcome to
couldn't
the cast,
ask for yeah, baby. You're going to get the t-shirt. We're going to do some pictures
here. Get a champagne bottle?
Yeah, boom, let's break that. Judge Smales, right? So I'm really excited to be surrounded by talent. Nick, it's always great to have you on the podcast. You just add great energy, but I also know that you speak from the heart, ultra sincere, and everything that you just talked about, I've witnessed and I've watched you do. And I've been on calls where I've seen it. And Jason, I've sat in meetings with you, and I told you at the first meeting that we were at in Geneva, I looked at Nick, I'm like, ooh, good hire. That was a good one. So Jason, I will tell you, and that's sincere, and it's sincere because I'm putting it out on the airways right now, and I care a lot about my personal brand and what I speak and what I say. I will tell you that you are one of the most talented people that I've had a chance to interact with, whether it's in these four walls of this building or outside of that. And the future is very bright. Gentlemen, you got shit done.
Oh, love
Thank
it.
you.
Cheers. Can your business handle 15% growth? If yes, you have to engage with 2020 Design. They fuse data and creativity to stop the scroll, break through the noise, and grab the attention of your future customers. 2020 Design will create competitive, click-worthy campaigns, design and build custom websites, spark your social media presence, and structure email campaigns that get right to your audience, the decision maker. Let's boost attention and awareness, which allows you to convert more sales. Check them out at 2020design.com. That's the number 20, TWENTY design.com.